Welcome in. It is a pleasure to be joined by Dr. Rick Ahmad from Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, a hand and wrist specialist. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to talk to you today. Thank you for the time. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. We were kind of talking before we started, and I always find it's interesting that doctors we get to know in this little bitty time frame in an exam room or something like that. And you have to get to know your patients in that time as well. So this is kind of an interesting opportunity to go a little more long form and get to know the doctors as well. So reading up a little bit on you, from Eugene, Oregon?
Yes.
Are there many people from Eugene, Oregon?
I think it's rare. Although my daughter, who was at Wake Forest, her sorority sister's dad was born on the same day in the same hospital in Eugene, Oregon. He's a chef somewhere in North Carolina now. I don't know how we figured that out, but we did.
That's pretty incredible. Yeah. I thought I was going to get a University of Oregon story, maybe some type of Nike story.
Right. Now, my dad was I think he was actually working in the area when I was born.
What did your dad do?
Family practice.
Okay. So he was a physician in Oregon.
Actually, no.
Okay.
Long story. Self-made man, grew up on the streets of what was then the beginning of Pakistan, homeless.
Wow.
Because of all the strife in it, homeless. Moved his way around, got to the U.S., found somebody to help fund his way through college in Oregon and medical school. But he didn't practice at first. He went to work. Yeah, so I think he was working at Weyerhaeuser when I was born.
With a medical degree?
Yes.
That's incredible.
I don't really understand it. I think he wanted to be at home more than be away like most doctor jobs require. So he didn't start practicing until I was in high school. Yeah, I don't know.
Your family, in a very short synopsis, kind of is the embodiment of the American dream.
It is 100%. My mother, self-made woman, grew up a migrant farm worker out west, picking crops from Mexico to Canada. I think her dad was a sheep shearer as well, followed the sheep up and down. Now she's retired, but she did sit in an endowed chair in the College of Nursing at Alabama. So and I remember picking crops with her when I was little. So they both did very well.
That's incredible.
It is. They could each write a book, I think, on who they were, how they did. And it would probably be worth reading.
Was there a point in your young life where you got bitten by the bug, for lack of a better phrase, where you knew you wanted to be a physician of some sort?
Oh, no. I'm a typical first-generation kid. So my dad came from India, Pakistan here. So I'm a first-generation kid. And I think a lot of first-generation kids are driven by their parents to, you will succeed, you will do this. And my dad told me, there was never oh, honey, what do you want to do? He said, you'll be an engineer, you'll be a doctor. That's it, end of story. There's no question.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't disagree with my father. I wouldn't say no to him. That'd be bad. I would never say no to him. Would not have.
Yeah, you're a large, I don't say like a huge, but you're a large man. You're a big man. Like, were you intimidated by your father?
Oh, yes. He was 5'6".
How tall are you?
6'2", 6'3". Yeah, he was 5'6", about 135 pounds. It's attitude. 100% attitude.
Yeah. So you have this pretty fascinating upbringing in Oregon. At some point, though, you moved to Tennessee?
We did. Job. Dad went to Tennessee when I was first grade. And then spent most of my time growing up in Tennessee. And
so your path through education was in Tennessee. You graduated from Tennessee, went to Vanderbilt Medical School. Those were was it appealing just to be close to home? Was it the quality of the school? What was it that drew you there?
Vanderbilt was the quality of the school for sure. And when I interviewed at Vanderbilt Medical School, I knew this is where I want to be. But Tennessee was just a natural because we were in Knoxville. Dad taught at Tennessee. Moved to Johnson City when he started practicing and was part of the faculty at ETSU's medical school. But it was just an easy, I was around UT growing up. Go to work with Dad in the summers, hang out on campus. And my best friend from high school said he was going. So I went. And, kids nowadays, they start planning this stuff. Do you have kids?
I have one.
How old?
9.
So they start planning these things. Well, this grade school, that high school, AP scores, tests, this, that college, and they forever. I remember somewhere around February, my senior year in high school, my buddy said, I'm going to go to UT. I said, I will too. So I applied February of my senior year, which is way late now.
It's late. Yeah. Normally you're doing that when you're a junior.
Right.
Yeah.
And got in, went to school. That's it. It was different then.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned that your mom is endowed in Alabama.
She was, yeah, but she retired. That's right.
You went to Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Was coming to Baton Rouge and being surrounded by so much purple and gold different?
I was not opposed to the LSU thing. I didn't care for LSU when I was in college. The very first football game so we didn't have a sports family growing up. My dad was not into sports, unless it was soccer, because that's what he grew up with.
Sure.
But my very first football game, my college roommate took me to 1983 was Tennessee LSU. I think that's the first football game I ever went to was Tennessee LSU.
In Knoxville.
In Knoxville. And his best buddy from his high school, huge LSU fan, motorhome, doing all that stuff out there by campus for years. So he came up to the game. So that was my first experience. But no, coming here was also another interesting story. My dad told me that, because we talked about some of his path through life, and he said every time he turned around, he was lucky. And that is 100% the story of my life. Every time I've turned around, I've been lucky. And so medical school, Vanderbilt, first day orientation. And somebody said, there's a guy in our class from Louisiana. I said, man, I want to hear this accent. I want to meet this person. And it was Mike Robichaux, who's my partner now, Dr. Robichaux. And I went up and talked to him. I introduced myself, asked him where he was from. He's from Raceland. Okay. But he had to say the word Raceland 4 times to me before I got what he was saying. So I met Mike, first day of medical school in 1989. And then you went to medical school, did orthopedic surgery residency, which is another 5 years after medical school. And in our class at Vanderbilt, there were 10 people going to ortho. And over the time of residency and whatnot, and then I was in the Navy after that for 4 years, I had contact with all of them. Just to, hey, what are you doing? Kind of a little group. How's it going? What do you want? What's your path in life? Except Mike. I don't know why I didn't know where he was, or for some reason I never talked to Mike. When I finished the Navy, so medical school, orthopedic residency, 4 years in the Navy to pay back my Navy scholarship. Thank you for the medical education, by the way. And then went to fellowship in Indiana, hand fellowship in Indiana. But I knew Mike Robichaux had been there 4 years before me because he went residency straight to fellowship. So I go there, haven't talked to Mike in 10 years now. I was interested in what he's doing, just curious. And they had his number, so I knew they would. Called him up, November 2002. Spent an hour and a half on the phone. Job. I have a job. Here we are.
That's how you ended up at BROC.
That's how I ended up here. Absolutely.
Because of a connection to Mike Robichaux a decade prior.
Yes.
What was it like? So you go into the Navy, and thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
So you go into the Navy, you finish the Navy, you go into fellowship in Indiana. Why? Obviously, Mike was the connection, but when you had to come down here, I would assume from Indiana to Baton Rouge to visit the practice and see it. What was appealing about BROC?
So I had a lot of ideas in my head about how I wanted to practice a bigger group. I wanted to be in the South. College town is great. State capital is great. But really, the 3 things that we came for a weekend with my then wife, we came for a weekend, and the three things really just jumped out: food, architecture, and people. The rest of it, BROC is fantastic. But at that point, I had no idea what I was getting into. I don't know what I'm doing. I had no idea how to practice. I've been in the Navy where it's a job. You go, you do it, and people tell you what to do, how to dress, how to eat, what to eat, when to eat. So I had no idea about practice. So I didn't know what to say except, yeah, it sounds good. They've got a good show going on here. It is a college town. I can deal with the LSU thing. I like the hot weather, big fan of hot weather. But it was just driving around and looking at the houses and the buildings and eating the food. Because eating with Mike Robichaux is a treat. He knows how to eat, he knows how to order, he knows how to entertain, and he did that and showed the best side of this city. And so here we are. And the people here are different. And I don't want to downplay anybody else because I've lived in a bunch of places. The people here are open-minded. And I know when you live in a town, you say, our drivers here suck. Our roads here are terrible. But unless you've been other places, you don't really know how good they may be. The people here are so open-minded, which is nice. They're not nearly as much, I think, judgment as you may think if you live here and don't go a lot of places. And they're welcoming. Like I said, not really judgy. I thought, I mean, I'm an Indian guy. Look at me. Listen to my last name. But I never got any of that when I came here. And the other thing that really struck me about the people, I grew up in Knoxville and then Johnson City, which is a pretty small town in Upper East Tennessee. It has a college in it, which people go to, absolutely. But the average person here, the average parent here, I think, wants their kid to go to college, go to LSU, do better. It just pervades the culture here, which is pretty impressive. And again, it's easy to downplay where you have what you are, what you see every day. But unless you've gone somewhere else and seen something else, you may not realize just how good it is. Did I ever answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And it doesn't matter if you did, because that was great.
Okay.
Well, the question was about when you visited Baton Rouge and what was appealing. Now, you mentioned that was 2002.
Yes.
So here we are 21 years later. Could you have imagined staying here for 21 years and making your life here for as long as you have?
I did.
Okay.
My then wife, Donna, maybe not. Maybe not. I told her, if it turns out not to be fantastic, we'll leave. And I think we both thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I am interested in why you chose hand and wrist as a specialty, because in my world where I deal with a lot of sports, it's kind of incredible because everything you do is related to your hands, whether you're shooting a basketball or holding a tennis racket or throwing a baseball, everything. But we focus so much on like the big bones and joints, don't we? We focus on elbows and knees and shoulders. So what drew you to hand and wrist?
I was lucky. Same sort of story. So I go to the Navy. I did my residency in Indiana. Different from the fellowship, same town, but different organization where we did a lot of hand. That was just the nature of it there. Go to the Navy, and the boss, the captain, colonel in the Army, orthopedic surgeon that ran the department, would get the consults that patients need to be seen, and he would divvy them up. And there was just three of us, myself, the boss, and another guy who got there when I got there, both right out of residency. And he said, who wants to do hand? Who wants to take care of these hand consults? I said, well, I was in Indiana, did a lot of hand. I'll give it a try. And I enjoyed it. But I wanted to stay in Pensacola. That's where I wanted to be when I first started, down this path. There wasn't a hand surgeon from Panama City to Mobile. I said, my hand's okay, and there's not much competition. Let me do that. But then this job popped up. Donna didn't want to stay. She really didn't want to stay, I think, in Pensacola. But when I said I'm going to go to Baton Rouge, she said, "Oh, I want to go to Pensacola." I said, "No, I'm sorry, that door closed." So, but that's why hand, because just it happened, and it turns out it suits me. You would never think about it when you're picking. When doctors pick what they want to do, there's a lot of things that you have no idea. Questions you have no idea even to ask. The easy one is, do I want to do surgery? Do I not want to do surgery? That's an easy question. People see that one coming. But what you don't realize is the variety or lack of variety that you may do as a doctor or as a surgeon. Take heart surgery. I don't know for sure, but I don't think they do a huge variety. They do bypass, valves, maybe heart transplant, some aorta work, which is important. I am not denigrating that because I want a good cardiac surgeon. Absolutely. But even in talking to Mark Field, one of my partners, a shoulder guy, does a lot of LSU sports, I think it was he told me this, that he does basically 6 operations, cuff, instability, arthritis, Tommy John's. And so there's a spectrum of how many different things you have to master. Hand, we do, 50 to 100 different kind of things a month.
How many surgeries how many times are you in the OR?
4 days a week.
You're in the OR 4 days a week?
Full day Wednesday, half day Monday, Thursday, Friday.
How often are you presented with something truly unique?
Pretty frequently. Even now, 20 years in, a lot of patients in, a lot of surgeries, and I still see stuff that I've never seen before. And I just had this happen. It was this week. I've never seen that. I can't remember what it is now. But it's hard, and I apologize if any patients are listening, it is hard to remember. And when I tell people, if I remember you, that is not good for you.
Yeah.
That means you have a real problem.
Yeah.
If I remember who you are, that's probably not good for you.
So in a given week or a given year, if you're in the OR 4 days a week, you're literally doing thousands of surgeries a year.
About 1,200.
So more than 1,000 surgeries
Yes.
a year over 20 years. You've done 20,000 surgeries.
Yes.
So the level of expertise is certainly very high. If you believe in the 10,000 hour rule, you've more than doubled that.
Yeah.
And you're obviously going to be presented with a lot of different things. You mentioned something though that I would think is kind of common, which is arthritis. Is maybe just because it's a common word that even a layman like me, I know the word arthritis. What issues sort of present with arthritis?
Pain. Yeah, it's funny. Everybody knows arthritis, but what really is it? What is?
Yeah, what is it?
What is it? It's that 2 bones rubbing together where that surface. You know the end of a drumstick, chicken bone. You know how white that drumstick, that cartilage is? That's normal, beautiful cartilage. Arthritis, when that stuff wears away, gets rough, ugly, whatever, and then it starts rubbing, bones, and it hurts. And that's arthritis. And we see it in the hands all the time. This right here, baby, hurts people. Common.
Right there by the thumb.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thumb and
You
wrist.
don't have any yet.
No, I don't.
You're lucky.
I am.
It's common. And then here, you see those knuckles, people get those bumps and start getting crooked. That's arthritis. It doesn't have to hurt. It can be ugly and not hurt, but if it does hurt, and people are very surprised, we can help them with that. Yeah.
What do you do to help?
I'm not a huge, there's anti-inflammatories. We all know, go take Aleve, go take Advil, Not a huge anti-inflammatory fan.
Okay.
Because if you have arthritis, that's theoretically a lifetime, take this medicine. But anti-inflammatories have problems, Motrin, Aleve, and the fancy ones with your stomach, with your kidneys. So I get uncomfortable prescribing anti-inflammatories for people that I think they should take long-term because I'm not going to monitor their kidney function, their stomach. I'm not going to see them every 6 months, every year. So I don't particularly like the idea. You could brace, supports, wraps, little things to protect it. But the problem with bracing your hands is you can't use them. It makes your arthritis feel better to hold still. But if your thumb is holding still, you can't use your thumb, which is half of what makes you human. Thumb being the other thumb being the other half. Injections, I love to inject. I love to inject people's arthritic joints. It's almost the wow factor. One, it helps them, but it makes them feel better right now. So I put some lidocaine in there, works within a few seconds, and hey, that's better already. I love that. I love that.
At what point do you consider operating?
Well, so injections, most people, not all, most people are helped by it. It makes them feel better. But there's problems with that. There's this theoretical, how many shots can I get, doc? I don't know if there's really a limit. If your arthritic joint is bad, I'm not sure that putting those medicines in there is going to make it any worse because that cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
So I tell people, I'll inject you as long as you want, every so often. But the reality of it is either they stop working and people say, hey, I want some surgery, or they get tired of coming in. You got to drive in, you got to park, you got to walk in, you got to wait. And people wait a long time, and I am aware of it all day, every day. It's one of the greatest stresses in my life. In the back of my mind is I know how long this person's been waiting. I have tried and tried and tried to fix my schedule, to fix how I do what I do to make it better. Nothing has worked. People wait. So I know they're waiting. You drive, you walk in, the inconvenience of that, you check in, you wait, you sit, you get your shot, you leave. People eventually get tired of that and say, yeah, I'm tired of this, just fix it. And we fix it.
And surgery can fix arthritis.
Yes.
How? Because I'm thinking, right, so if the cartilage, you can't put more cartilage in there, can you?
No. Joint replacement. That's how surgery fixes arthritis. Hip replacement, knee replacement.
Sure.
Just get rid of it and do something else. And so this joint, for instance, we replace that. Just take the arthritic bone out and throw it away. Gone. Put a tendon in its place. Thumb is happy. Works very well in almost everybody. The arthritis out here, you can't replace this joint. There isn't one made. It's small. It'd be hard to do. Lots of problems. You fuse it so it doesn't move anymore. Put a screw in there. That thing stops moving, which at first most people are kind of leery of that. But and I've been at this long enough now to ask patients 10 years later, 15 years later, 5 years later, how is that fusion? Oh, it's fine. It doesn't hurt. I do what I do.
Right.
So yeah, it works.
Another part of your practice, obviously, is amputations as well. What would lead to that kind of conversation, that kind of that I would assume that would be a necessity when you get to that point.
Necessity is a vague term.
Okay. Most
Amputations are traumatic. In our world, most of it's traumatic. You stick your hand into something, and either the something amputates for you, or mangles it so bad it can't be fixed. You would amputate, which, occupational safety is a huge thing, and thank goodness for those people who do it and pay attention to it. And I'm pretty sure when the occupational safety guys in plants with companies first came about, I'm sure somebody said, "Man, this is an expense. I gotta hire somebody to go follow my guys around, make sure they're doing the right thing." But in the end, it's a win. The biggest thing about occupational safety, and so I'm not going to touch on a lot of that because there are guys who do it for a living. The one thing that breaks my heart, not to overemphasize or act all dramatic, but it really does, is when a young guy, 24, 25, 35, young guy, wife, kids, works for himself, puts his hand into a saw. Loses a couple fingers, has a couple other fingers that don't work well. He's down for a year. It's terrible. So I don't know. I don't like to plug. I have a table saw. I do a bunch of woodworking. I know the irony of a hand surgeon having a table saw. I get it. I have a table saw. I use one. There's a company out there that makes a table saw that will not cut you. Will not cut your fingers off. Yeah.
Buy it.
I think. And I guarantee you when I run, I think they're a little more expensive than others. And that's why it just hurts me to see these guys who say, "Man, I can't spend that extra $1,000 on this table saw." Dude, you are out way more than that now.
Yeah.
Life as you know it has changed. And it's sad. It upsets me. But amputation, most of them are traumatic. Sometimes people get a bad injury, a finger gets stiff, and it's there, but it's just in the way of their function. And we take their finger out because it would help the other fingers work better. You want to know what's surprising? This is a great segue into this. What do you think is the least important finger?
Pinky?
Which one would you give up if you had to give up?
Pinky, right?
No.
Isn't that the answer?
That one.
The pointer?
Index finger. Most arrogant, least important finger because it thinks it's number one. It's just when that thing gets stiff, it is in the way. Get rid of it.
Do people say pinky when you ask them that question?
Yes.
So why isn't the pinky the least important? Or why is the pointer the least important?
Well, it's easily substituted for because people switch. If you ask them who hurts their index finger, like this, they switch to the middle finger. It's still pretty clever, pretty close to the thumb, pretty strong, good sensation. Pinky's pretty important because it's pretty far away, but it is a little bit little. The ring, if I had to pick two fingers, it'd be thumb and ring.
To keep.
Yeah, because the ring is really a strong finger and a long ways away. It gives you big, wide cylinder grasp. But it's not the index finger.
Okay.
Which is amazing to most people.
Yeah.
And until I started down this job, I'd have said the same thing. So,
I thought the middle finger is the most important, Doc, because sometimes when I'm in traffic, I need that thing. Talk about being in traffic. I need that thing when I'm in traffic sometimes.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, you've as we talked about, you've gotten to see so many patients, thousands of patients over the course of your career. 100,000.
Over 100,000.
Over 100,000 patients.
Just based on, I know the number of office visits I do a year over times 20 years is a lot of visits.
100,000 patients.
Over 120.
Do you know the exact number? Because you keep narrowing the scope on me.
I don't work as hard as I used to. I'm still up to 6,000 plus visits a year.
Wow.
For 20 years.
120,000 patients.
Yep.
And you said it's probably not a good thing if you remember someone.
That is correct.
But there are patients that you remember
100%
that are great stories.
I can tell you their names, what happened to them, how old they were, which again is not good for them. But we're talking about amputation. I don't know if I can tell this lady's. I'm not going to say her name. How about that? I won't say her name.
Perfect.
This, and you said, amputations, why do they happen? And this is a whole conversation we don't have time for. But I have a lady, got shot, right arm, nerve, artery, terrible. 17 years ago, I think. Probably 10 surgeries. She has her arm, she has her hand. Sensation in her hand, I think, is not normal, but it damaged the nerves right here. Artery nerves. Elbow. And I did a bunch of work, and it helped her a little bit, just minimal. And she was very clear on everything I did, helped her, but just a little bit, and didn't help very long. And she actually came in one day and said, cut my arm off. Right-handed woman, attractive, young woman, cut my arm off. It hurts too bad. So we did it right there. Dominant hand. And I'm not sure where I was going with this, but amazing story. She does woodworking. Even without her. So I know she still likes me because she made me something for my office after I cut her arm off. No kidding.
That is...
And it's good stuff. I was so worried. I went and saw her the day after. We kept her in the hospital overnight. Went and visited with her, and she was up. Had her clothes on, had her makeup on. The bed was made in the hospital. I thought, oh my God, this woman is in denial. This is going to be a crash and burn. I was so worried about her. I even asked her, hey, you shouldn't be this happy. But it's been a while now, so it was not. She's been waiting for that for so long, wanting to be out of pain, and she was out of pain finally. Something else about amputations that people probably don't realize, because there are a lot of amputations. Most of them are legs. I think most amputations are legs. And they get this pain. You ever heard of phantom pain? So they think they still have their part, their foot. The brain thinks it's still there and it hurts.
Okay.
And they can't get away from it. So you get your leg amputated, and the nerves in your legs, they don't have anything to do. But they're caught up in a ball of nerve endings or in some scar where they had surgery, and they're telling your brain, hey, my big toe is a problem. My toes are crossed. I hear this. I hear a blowtorch on my heel, or I feel like my toes are cramped and crossed and won't let go, but they don't have a foot. That's phantom pain. And then the nerve endings, where they got their leg amputated or their arm, are trying to heal. The nerve's trying to heal. It grows on this big ball, mushroom of nerve. Can you imagine having a nerve ending just sitting on your skin? It's terrible. So neuroma is what it's called. And so some smart guy in Chicago about 20 years ago decided to give these nerves something to do. If they're hanging out in the soft tissues, unhappy, getting beat up, let's give them something to do. And maybe it helps. And oh my goodness, it has been, I think for the amputees, has been life-changing. he called it targeted muscle reinnervation. We call it TMR because that's a big mouthful. And you take these leg amputees and do a TMR on them, rearrange their nerves, either below knee, above knee. And in most of them, it helps. And I had this lady. Should I tell stories, not tell stories? Do you care about the stories?
Stories are amazing. Everybody loves stories.
So you have to start, learn a new procedure. You got to start somewhere. And I started doing TMR 6 or 7 years ago because somebody told me about it, who I called somebody else who did them, told me how to do it. I said, give me the recipe. What do I do with these nerves in this leg? Because I know how to find my way around. I know how to work with the microscope, work without the microscope, do nerve work. I know how to do all that. Just show me the recipe. Tell me what to do. The first patient I did, TMR, lost 3 extremities, trauma, both legs and an arm. And I thought, well, I'm going to do this arm, try to get him better function. And, I practice. The second lady, the first leg I did, somebody sent me because it's supposed to be for nerve pain. And she had a below knee amputation, pain. And so we did the surgery just like it was supposed to go. And we kept her in the hospital at the lake. And I went to see her over the next day, and I go in, and she's crying. I mean, she is crying in pain. But through the tears, I'm choking up, I'm sorry. Through the tears, she smiles at me and says, my leg pain is gone. 10 years of pain in my foot is gone. She's crying because her amputation site, because her surgery site hurts. She's crying, but she smiles and said, my foot pain is gone. So, it's a something. We do it in arms as well, not for pain. Arms don't get phantom pain, in my experience. Now, somebody can call and say, oh, you're so wrong, I have phantom pain. And I get that, but in my experience, arms don't get phantom pain like legs. But we do TMRs in them as well, rearrange nerves, because there's these prostheses now. You've probably seen the hooks.
Sure.
And we call it body power. It's got some straps on the shoulders, some rubber bands. When you do your shoulders, the rubber band, reach out, the rubber band opens up. When you relax, it closes, and that's how you hold. That's a body power, right? But now with all the technology, we have these myoelectric. Electrical signals run electrical motors, make things happen. And so if you take, say, a forearm amputation, wrist amputation, you put this prosthesis on, there are sensors, metal studs inside that socket that can read the electrical signals from your muscles, because it generates electricity when you do that stuff. Feed that signal into a computer. Tell the computer, these muscles are firing because that person's trying to open their hand. Run that back into the computer in a prosthesis with motors, and boom, hand opens. No shit. And so the basic muscle functions, without a hand, what you have is some wrist motions, motors doing that, and maybe you can sense some muscles doing this. So maybe you got 4 sites to sense stuff going on. And run those signals into the computer, back into the prosthesis, and you get some. But if you could get more signal sites, it'd be even better. Right? Because you've got basic functions that are still working. So again, some smart person said, well, hey, look, there's no hand here. They don't need their carpal tunnel nerve anymore because there's no hand. They don't need their funny bone anymore because there's no hand. Let's do something with those nerves. Reroute those into other muscles that are near the surface, near the skin. Now you got more stuff to sense. So in arms, we're doing TMR to make their myoelectric prostheses better, more functions. They are so sophisticated, mind-boggling. One of the companies, I don't know who it is. I'm not plugging, I don't know. One of those companies has maybe a gyroscope. I can't remember the technical term for it, but in this person's prosthesis, the computer knows we'll call it a gyroscope because I forget the other name, that the arm is down. And when your arm is down, your hand does a certain sorts of things down here. And so you have the person, you put the sensing studs on their arm, you say, put your arm down, hold the ball, do this, do that. It senses those motor patterns. It's okay, when the arm is down, the hand is going to do this. When the arm is here, it's doing this. When it's up there, so there's certain positions that you put your hand in, it does different stuff. Now these prostheses, last I heard, the prosthesis could tell the computer 7 different levels of where the arm is, which gives you 7 sets of separate hand functions. Wow.
Just listening to you talk, the innovation in the field, for lack of a better term, still fires you up.
Yeah, it does, actually. I get excited.
Obviously, you want advancements in your field. You want all of those opportunities to help people heal and live a more productive, fulfilled life. A big part of that, though, I would imagine also is prevention. So if you're advising people on what to do, how do I prevent myself from getting hand, wrist injuries, aside from, what we talked about a bit ago with being job safety and care, just in day-to-day life? I'm holding a pen.
Yeah.
I have a desk job. I sit and I talk. What could I do to prevent issues later in life with my hands and my wrist?
Probably nothing. Based on what you just said, desk job. I don't buy into carpal tunnel is caused by typing. Literature's pretty strong that that's not really a good association. There's occupational and recreational. Recreational is simple. Alcohol makes bad decisions. So why is New Year's so much worse for firework injuries than 4th of July? You'd never imagine. So in the first 15 years I was here, I was in the OR 11 of them New Year's night. 11. With a hand blown up. Why New Year's? 4th of July, man, you would think that's the big one. Almost never. Because 4th of July is family holiday. Fireworks are at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock maybe. Pretty early. New Year's, though, the goal is drink as much as you can by midnight, then set off fireworks, and that's when people blow their hands up. Not kidding.
It makes sense.
Alcohol. And just, man, guys, mostly it's guys. You know it's not a good idea. You know it's not, don't do it. You know it's a dumb idea, don't do it. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic advice, and hopefully it would make everybody think twice. I was reminded when you said that there's obviously a famous football player, Jason Pierre-Paul, who had an incident where he was doing exactly that and lost fingers and part of his hand, and it kept him away from the NFL for several years. He did rehabilitate and come back and play, but with just part of one hand because of a firework incident.
That's right. It is more common than you think. And they're young people. Young people, prime of their life, pre-production, pre-productivity years. High school, college, but young. Lots of production, and people depending on them. Just like that guy put his hand into a saw. You're 26, you got 2 kids, 1 kid, you're out with the buddies, and somebody says, hey, hold this in your hand. Come on. Don't. I took care of this girl once, 15-year-old softball player, new kind of Roman candle from China. That's what she said. I don't know. New big Roman, blew up in her hand. And she said to me, and I heard this from a bunch of people after that, well, yeah, you're supposed to hold a Roman candle in your hand. No, don't do that. But that I was surprised that people think you're supposed to hold a Roman candle in your hand. But anyways, I'm sorry, I got off topic again.
No, we should probably do an entire episode just on firework safety, because that is really interesting, and obviously that's something you've seen a bunch.
Yes.
And when you have a hand injury, you can't shoot a basketball anymore, right? That's a pretty big passion point for you.
Well, it is not a bad thing for a young player, middle school age player, to put their dominant hand into a cast. Little itty bitty wrist fracture, hand fracture, going to heal well, not affect your life, but put that dominant hand in the cast, and now they got to go left, dribble left, shoot left. Man, you cannot, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you cannot start left-handed if you're right-handed. Dribbling, ball handling, shooting with your left. You can't start early enough.
Young athletes, pay attention. Start dribbling with the left hand early.
Left. Go left. And, coaching, I know it's always something got fired up about. use your left, go left, go left, go left. Left-handed layups. By the time you're in 8th grade, listen, boys, if you watch middle school teams warm up, what I think, most of the girls are trying to shoot their left-handed layups left-handed in warm up. They're trying. Most of the boys will stop and pop right-handed or try a reverse because it's cool.
Yep.
Most boys do not warm up left-handed layups, I think. I'm sure there are a bunch of coaches out there yelling at me right now. That's just what I've observed from watching a lot of middle school basketball because I had 2 daughters that played a lot, coached them AAU, went to games, went to tournaments, went to training, went to practice. I mean, private lessons, years in the gym. And that's one thing that just struck me. Boys are less likely to shoot left-handed layups in warm-up than girls. Let's just leave it at that.
And you actually get to be around the women's game quite a bit now as the team physician for the national champion LSU women's basketball team.
Fantastic.
You've gotten to wear the purple and gold comfortably now.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
What was it like being around this team this year?
Funny. They had very few injuries. I wasn't around them. So I don't hang out. I don't really go to the locker room very much. I don't hang out. I go to the games. If they need me, I go see them. I visit with the trainer just to make sure he's okay. But I had a lot of contact with Alexis Morris just because she hurt herself last year at a game. So I saw her, talked to her. She hurt her finger in the summer last year. So I talked to Alexis quite a bit and saw her. But I think on this team, the national championship team, that is the only player I have taken care of in any way. So yeah. So fortunately, I didn't see him, but I love basketball. And people, I hate to make generalizations, generally like men's ball more than women. I get it. There's not as much dunking in a women's game. I understand that. But I told you my daughters played, and so we'd go to some women's game early on, and I remember texting the Mickey Collins, who's now the head of LSU sports medicine. I think that's her official title, or at least Olympic sports. I'm not sure. Good friend, good person, good trainer. Texting Mickey, hey, I'm going to be at these games with my daughters, because there was no doctors at the games, no orthopedic surgeons at the games at the time. And I said, hey, I'll be here. If you need me, just keep in touch. And then got season tickets the next year, and from then on, I just kind of backed into being a women's team doctor because I wanted to be around. And now went through all of Nikki Fargas, which is 10 seasons. The season before, 10 with Nikki, that's the end of 12 seasons, I think. And 11 of them is season ticket holder. A lot of games.
That is a lot of games.
A lot of games. And some good games, some good people, some good players, some good skill. I know it's not men's games. I like it. I like it.
When you sort of look ahead in your field at what the next 5 years or 10 years, maybe 20 years for you professionally or in orthopedics as it relates to hands and wrists, what do you think you see?
What I'd like to see is better wrist and elbow replacement. That's what I'd like to, especially elbow. Wrist replacements are okay. I think they're okay. They seem to last reasonably well, hold up reasonably well, but the elbow is a problem. Elbow replacements don't last like hips and knees. You can't lift more than 5 pounds forever. And there are quite a few people out there who have bad elbow problems, and we don't have a good solution. Would love to see that. Have some ideas, talk to a couple of companies, but the reality, there's not money in it. So these things, it takes a lot of money to bring a product to market, whether it be a drug, an FDA, and all the time. It takes time and money. And the companies, understandably so, are not going to put their time and money into developing something that doesn't pay off on the back end. Why would you invent a new brick, a new nail, a new whatever, if you can't sell it? So there's so few elbow replacements done in the country. It's not a lot of money to come back to those companies to promote research to do it better. I'd love to see that problem solved. So I think I have the answer. I actually think I pretty passionate about this as well, because I think I know the answer, and I've talked to a couple of companies and tell them, look, this is going to work out. It's going to be better. You're going to get that market share, put the money into it, but they're not interested yet.
Maybe the next 120,000 patients will have an
Dude, I don't have
opportunity.
20 years of this left in me. It's hard.
Dr. Rick, Ahmad, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.